Welcome to another Gamma Partner Artist feature interview. Today we speak with Sherie. Sherie is a photographer based out of Kenya. She digs into all things photography, culture, inspiration, portraiture, and more. I think you're going to enjoy this conversation. Okay, so very excited to have Sherie here. Sherie's a photographer. She's based out of Kenya, which will be really interesting to dig into as well. She's a Gamma Partner artist, and I'm very excited to speak to her. Sherie, I'd love for you to tell your story. You can go all the way back to when you were a little kid through to now. How did you get into creating, into photography, perhaps into NFTs, and then onto Bitcoin, creating ordinals? Tell your story. Go for it.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here and have this conversation with you, Brett. I'm in Mombasa right now. This is the coast of Kenya. But I'm born and raised and grown up in Kenya all my life, literally. Um, yeah, and wow, going down memory lane from where my journey began, that's a lot of things to dig into. But I think as far as I can remember, in terms of me and my art and my practice, I have always been an artist ever since I was a kid. I'm one of those who used to sit down on Saturdays and just watch, what was the show called? Art Attack. I think Art Attack was very popular everywhere in the world. So I used to watch Art Attack a lot, and I'll be one of those kids who used to try and repaint and remodel what that guy used to create on TV. And yeah, everything. I was just a very artsy kid, always asking my mom for some clay, some manila paper to cut out whatever. And so it doesn't shock my family a lot that I'm here right now still pursuing art and whatever thing. I don't think they quite understand what I do, but they like sort of made peace with the whole thing, and they sort of have an idea of me being an artist in this shape and form. So as much as I was a kid very artsy, I don't think I was exposed so much to photography as an art form, or even as a career, or like people actually do photography. I think in my teen years, I used to think a lot of things were just photoshopped. Anything that I would see is cool. Anything is like a blur background, like I just assumed just people sit with the computer and edit a lot. But I got exposed to photography, like proper photography. This is in campus, actually, after I finished high school. And I was doing my degree in fine art at Kenyatta University. And during this time, this is around 2015. Yeah, around 2015. Instagram was really popping at that time. And people loved going to photo shoots. People are young at that time, just want to go to a photo shoot in the weekend and then post pictures on Instagram for the sake of, glamour and just getting followers and all that. And that was sort of my introduction to photography, the fun and very cool stuff, cool things people are doing for the sake of social media. And so while I was doing my fine art degree, the diploma, I thought, number one, I was doing it in another whole city away from where my home is, and I wanted an excuse not to go back home, honestly. And so I told my dad I want to do this short course for photography, as because we used to have really long holidays in between our university semesters. So we had like a 3 months holiday, and I was like, I should do something in between the 3 months holiday. And so I say, let me do this short course. And the photography seemed like a really cool thing. At that time, I didn't even think that I could really. There's so much to do. There was so much to do apart from just taking cool pictures for the gram. And I think the first few weeks when I started doing the course, it was a 3 months course, and I really saw the potential of pursuing photography as an art form. Like I could really see how I could merge it with whatever I was doing in uni, in my course at that time. Because what we were being taught is a lot to do with painting, ceramics, fabric work, a bit of graphic design, and all these other traditional mediums. And so it just clicked instantly, like photography and that one thing. And that has just been my whole what I've just stuck to. I've tried doing landscapes, of course, weddings, corporate. I'm just not that person. I don't know. I like with photography for me, I have to create image. I'm not just taking a picture. I'm creating something. And that's why also another thing I've stuck to portraiture, because there's just so much stories to tell with people. And I think with time I've come to realize I'm always trying to tell my story at the same time, just as all artists do. You're reflecting, or you're pouring, or you're mirroring your life or yourself back to your work. And that has really been the same case with the work that I do. And it makes sense, because what ideas that are always stuck in your head, or whatever experiences, are what sometimes trigger some sort of artistic vision. And it makes sense when you then pour it back to your work very easily. And that has been my journey, or my path with my art. And since that time in 2015, I haven't really looked back. Yes, I still continued painting while in uni, but just photography just stuck. Like last year I did a residency in Nairobi, and this is the first time I was trying to go back to painting again, and trying to merge what I've been doing, photography and painting. And so I was experimenting with a lot of screen printing work, and I'm trying really to go back to this medium of how I can merge my digital creations to the physical again. But yeah, that is what I've been falling in love with over the last few years: photography, fine art, and some film work here and there. Yeah, I hope that summarizes it.
Oh, it really does. There's so many things that I want to ask. But first, let's wind the clock back. Like you said, you remember being very creative as a child, and it sounds like it was nurtured in the home. That's fascinating. So, look, I'm from Australia, and I don't know a lot about Africa, but from the outside, it seems like a very vibrant, and I know the continent is wide and varied, but a very vibrant place with a lot of culture. Do you think that the culture, like arts and culture, are inextricably linked? Pardon me, I can spit it out. Do you think that that was something that helped your parents or your family to kind of nurture that, and like you said, not be surprised that you're an artist now?
Interesting. Yeah, I think it is part of art, craft, and culture is really embedded in our society, or our culture in Africa. And just the funny thing is how, with this modernization, or how people are growing into this new society right now, it has also become some sort of alienated career path. Like, it's still like a big surprise when people hear you're an artist. Honestly, like this past 1 week, I have had two people really questioning what I do for a living, and like they wonder, am I, scamming people off of money? Because I'm like, I work online a lot of the times, and just sit at home editing, and it doesn't quite make sense yet. And it's still a weird thing in terms of the new society, and in terms of you pursuing art and craft as a career. It's still not so appreciated, I'd say. You really have to be very hard-headed to still continue pursuing this. But at the same time, like in terms of our core values, and in terms of our histories and all that, you'll see so many beautiful art and crafts elements really embedded in our culture. And even looking at somebody like my mother, I think who I got this whole artisticness side from, she used to what do you call this, crochet a lot of sweaters and all these wonderful things that people crochet can I say vintage, or in the older times, or in their generation. And so things like this were really common. Such what do you call them, such small talents, let's say talents, something such as crochet, beadwork, making baskets, making a lot of good things. But people, at the same time, you'd have to really balance it off with other sort of career paths for it to make sense. But I think somebody such as my mom noticing or like really wanting to nurture this small artistic traits that I was having as a kid was just so easy for her to do, because she gets it and she was already artistically inclined. And even until now, like, she's one of my biggest fans, even though she doesn't quite understand all the ins and outs. But just seeing you doing all these crafty things is such a pleasure. And a good percent of our people, or of the African society, people really do appreciate and really try and nurture and just really join in the whole arts and craftiness of the young people in our society.
Yeah, really interesting. And it's lovely to hear that you have had that support for so long. You mentioned Instagram, which I think, it's entertaining and it's totally fair enough. What else do you think led you to the camera?
Good question. Good question. What else? Honestly, hey. Instagram, yes, of course, there is the seeing youths and the whole posting for the cool accounts to look cool. Then there is now getting exposed to other photographers and other people using just photography in a really cool way. That was really the main thing. Do I have any other person? The other thing that I used to see on billboards or on magazines, I just used to think all these people used to Photoshop whatever they're doing, but I just never saw it as really yeah, like there's photography now, and so let's get deeper into what these people do, whatever they do with their camera. Honestly, I was just trying to take cool pictures, and I discovered everything else in my journey when I just joined that short course and I started experimenting with my own camera. I really discovered everything else along the way.
And talk to me, how was that learning? How did you go from being an amateur photographer, a beginner photographer, to pursuing it as a career?
Hmm. A lot of playing around and experimenting. I'm so lucky. At that time, I managed to convince my dad to get me a camera. Again, thanks to being in a sort of schoolish setup with a short course, it was easy to say, I need this for school. Please help me out. And so when you had the camera, I really shot everyone everything and just went for all these photo shoots for Instagram and played around with so many things. And I started just pouring my emotions more into the experiments that I was doing. Of course, at this time, a lot of people or younger photographers had for cameras for the sake of trying to make money, and you try to do weddings, you try to do baby shower shots and all these other corporate shoots. And I did try that also, but I don't think I was doing it that well. So I which was kind of depressing for a good amount of time, until I think even now I'm still making peace with the fact that I want to stick to fine art photography only, because you know being an artist isn't that easy, and sometimes you feel like you want to balance it off with a lot of other commercial things, and maybe I feel like my path really isn't in these other commercial things. And so being pulled into different what do you call them, different sides or different angle, is a lot of it just takes a lot to really discover yourself and to stick to your ground. But I think with time and experience and with doing things, making mistakes, and trying to navigate like the world of fine art photography has been tough. Honestly, it has been tough to really stick to this path. And every day I still get pulled to different directions of trying to, should I really try and get my feet into commercial work and all that? Should I get my feet into a bit of wildlife, maybe a bit of wedding photography, maybe? But yeah, I don't know, with time I've really come to grow stronger, I can say, and stick to my ground of fine art is what I love, it's what I'm good at, is the reason why I have pursued this path of photography, and this is what makes sense for me as an artist. So I have to stick to it and just, trust in the process and keep on holding my patience. Yeah.
For sure. And you mentioned that you were drawn to portraiture, and it really allowed you the ability to create, not just shoot a scene, which can be beautiful, of course, but you could bring, much more, I guess, like artistic touch and the ability to produce more of a desired outcome with portraiture. I'd love for you to, talk more about that.
Yeah, I guess I found just people interesting, and I don't, maybe because I wanted to compile a story. And yes, you can still make stories with just abstract subjects, even such as stones, plainly. But there was just something about people. I don't know. Maybe I just love people so much. But again, I think this also ties back to me pouring myself into my work. And so people help in my own storytelling process. I'd say that, like, with my own subject matters that I want to talk about are tied to human experiences, and so it makes sense for me to use humans again as a subject. So that is what I've really my vision has been with portraiture. I think, yeah, when I try to shoot something else, I may fail to see, the angles in the story or the subject that I want to talk about. But the same, I'm a fan of like abstracts and nature photography and wildlife photography. But going back to me saying I create images, when I'm going to create work, I may not be able to create my images without people in them. Yeah, like portraiture just makes sense. The human beings just are the people that make sense to be part of my artwork, because they are the ones who bring the stories to life. And this includes myself, because I'm still exploring a lot of self-portraiture. And so people, when I talk about people and storytelling, it doesn't have to be me shooting somebody else. I can also be included in this whole storytelling journey or story.
I was going to bring them up later, but I think that now is a perfect time to have a look at some of the work that you've put onto Bitcoin, because I think it really fits exactly what we were just talking about. These are the 3 prints, and there's obviously the originals that are on Bitcoin that they point to that you've brought as a partner artist. And yeah, you can see Hair and Melanin 1 and 2, and then I Live for the Applause. So maybe let's start with Hair and Melanin. I'd love for you to talk about those shots and the inspiration for them, perhaps, yeah, the experience, the story, and all of the above.
Yeah. Oh, I love these images so much. And Hair and Melanin was one of those sets or one of those shows that wasn't so, what do you call them? Can I say conceptualized, or really, because again, my work, I've taken different approaches to creating my work. And sometimes, I can take weeks, months, or an year even thinking about how I want to do a certain project, this location, build props, cast models, hair, whatever, and come up to this story and concept and all that. And Hair and Melanin was one of those shoots where I was traveling to Nairobi, and I was like, yeah, I really, really, really want to shoot this dark skin model. And I don't know, I was just really, really in the moment where I'm in awe and in really falling in love with melanin and just appreciating Black women. I think at that moment, that was what I was thinking about. This is like 2 days before I shot this. I was like, I need to do, a shoot really, really appreciating dark skinned women and just celebrating them and just do something beautiful with the hair. And I was going through Instagram. I saw this model. It was the first time I was working with her, and she's so gorgeous. And I thought about this beautiful bantu nose, went and bought accessories. And it was one of those shoots where everything is just so smooth, all the vibes, nothing really overthinking. And it's literally just about that, like loving and living in the moment of Black skinned women and dark skinned women's glory, and just loving who is standing in front of the camera and wanting to really capture her and really show the world, like literally her beauty. And that was all it was all about. And yeah, it's one of my favorite series right now. And it was as simple as that. And it was as, wanting to create all this beautiful and show this stunningness of this lady and of melanin and black women's hair. And yeah, when I thought about when I got into the partner artist program, I really thought about what I wanted to bring on Gamma. And I don't think I'd minted this work before. And yeah, I was so happy. I was like, yes, this is it. For the first time on Bitcoin, I will be, I think with the process even of inscribing work, it's not as easy as, we do it with other NFTs. And so you have to really, I was really taking time to really think out what it is that I want cemented on the blockchain. And this is what just made so much sense. And I'm so glad that a lot of people really love this work. And yeah, a lot of people have also collected it.
100%, as I have as well. And yeah, before we look at I Live for the Applause, as you know, I'm a huge fan of that piece. As a photographer and working in, with portraiture, particularly with the hair and melanin here, you're working with another human. That's more than just shooting really impressive photos. You need to learn to do it with another person. How has that learning been for you? There must be a skill in that.
Yeah. Honestly, most of the times, yes, I've tried to. I've shot with a lot of models at the same time of one. Some of them are my friends, and so we have this relationship of what we're doing on set. But even a good example is with this series. I had never met the model before. It was just a hire for Instagram, and I just try and tell my models, we're not overthinking. Let's just vibe and see what will come out of this creation. And so I just maybe direct the models in terms of, yeah, let's try this lighting, let's try this pose, this angle here and there. I think I have a BTS I posted on my Twitter off of this set. But if you see the BTS, you'd see it's just a very easy vibe. And if I'm working the hairstylist, yeah, just take these are the mood board that I want. So let's try and work around that. Other than that, I'll really depend on the mood of the set and just the vibes, and so that we can create the images. But I try to be open-minded, honestly, and we try to go with the flow and the mood of myself and the model to try and bring out stunning images.
Yeah, I think it's a really interesting component of it. And then I Live for the Applause. Obviously, we can see it's quite different to the hair and melanin shots. It's a very profound description. So I actually want to dig into your naming and descriptions in a little bit. But yeah, talk to us about this shot. It seems very relevant all the time in the kind of crazy world of Web3, if you'd like to call it that we live in, and social media and everything going on in the world. I'd love for you to talk about that. And also that, yeah, it's interesting. That's you. So it's self-portraiture. Anyway, more from you, less from me.
Yeah. Oh, this image. This was my last shoot of 2023. And it was very intentional on it being the last entry of the year. And I think I posted it on the 31st that morning on my Instagram. I don't know if it's the same day I did on Twitter. But it was very intentional. And again, looking back at how I create work, I look at my work literally as a diary. And even when I'm saying like this was my last entry into the year, it was every single piece that I create, I think usually cements a certain moment in my life. This is whether it's personal or whether it's just interacting with other experiences with other people or a certain headspace that I'm in. Everything is really tied to my life and the different stages of my life. And so this image is still a summary of the same. And in that moment, in that whole week, I think I either came out with the concept the previous week or the same week that I shot this, because I was just, as December, a lot of times you're reflecting on what the year has been like, and the ups and downs, and the future, the next year, what it's gonna be like. And I was coming to a conclusion that I'm really done. I'm really done living for the applause and feeling like a clown, like performing online a lot, especially as a creator. I think in this world of social media right now, and in this world where I think a lot of us always seek validation a lot for our work, with likes, retweets, comments, engagement, literally on social media, and how it either validates or invalidates our art, our creative process, our feelings. And I think it's such a huge juggle as an artist, and it can be a pain, it can be a good thing for some people. Maybe this is what some people feed off of. But I think 2023, number one, was quite a roller coaster year for me as a creator. The year started great with a good solo show, and then took some dips, and then came back up again. And as a summary of that year, I think I was just trying to mark the end of me really, really performing for whatever I feel like I was performing for a lot. And I think I was really, especially on platforms such as Instagram, because it's interesting how Instagram and Twitter are just all different for different experiences for creators. I feel like especially Instagram, where it's very, very visual based, and there's a lot of curation that may go on, especially if you're using it as some sort of portfolio app or place. For a long time, I just felt like that is what I was doing a lot, like really, really walking on eggshells and trying to create this beautiful portfolio, and especially chasing this whole career of a fine art photographer. And this is especially in the contemporary art world. I think things are a bit different than how we move in the blockchain space. A bit of two different worlds. And in the contemporary fine art world, I just feel like a lot of things are so curated, and people are moving really carefully, and there's galleries watching you, collectors watching you, and all that. And I was just feeling like I was doing that a lot of curating and a lot of performing, and I was just exhausted with the whole performing, because I felt like online you're painting a very different picture from what is happening in real life. And a lot of people I know can really relate to that. And then honestly, I was watching Lady Gaga's, what is the name of that song? I think it's called Applause, something like that, but I bet you know it. And I was watching that music video. I was watching that music video, and I saw her, and that also triggered the same idea, because she had also like this clown face, and that music video is so amazing. And I really felt the same way in terms of living for the applause and feeling like a clown and a performer of some sort, and to make whoever happy, or just lying to yourself that you're making people happy. And that is also what made sense when it comes to ending the year with this entry. And so I called my friend up. I was like, I have to shoot something, please pull up tomorrow. And I got this makeup, and we did this, and it just made sense to cement that year like that. And I was very happy, and this year started very differently. By putting the full stop with this concept for 2023, and that's here with this image on Bitcoin.
Yeah, it's a very deep story. And what about you being the model, the self-portrait shows that naturally it's a different experience because you're not shooting it, but how does that feel for you as well?
Again, honestly, first, initially, when I used to see a lot of self-portraits from artists and photographers, I used to really wonder also the same, like, how does that work? Like, you should be the one behind the camera. But with time, and with coming to grow into my artistry and what it means for me, and what is the purpose of me creating at all, and making all these bodies of work, again, tying back to myself and my diary of life, it just came so easy at a certain point to be standing in front of the camera again and doing some sort of, because it ties to like performing or some performance art in itself. And so again, this was my story and this was my whole experience of the year, and this was me trying to talk about myself and my art. I'm not trying to point a finger or what do you call it, like tell somebody's else story, or tells, like, as much as many people can relate to this whole feeling or this whole experience of feeling like you're performing a lot. I wanted it to be from my perspective and a reflection of my experience of the year. And so it made sense for me to be the one doing it. And it was also very intentional for this to be the last thing I was doing in the year. And so it just made sense for me to turn the camera to myself and just cement it as this last thing to summarize the year and to finish. It feels like also some sort of ritual in a way. And it just fell in place in that manner.
And artists do say that the art can be very cathartic or therapeutic. Do you find that is something that you feel when you create or when you finish creating?
Oh my God, yes, exactly as you said it. Like some sort of therapy. As everyone explaining it, like it feels some sort of ritual that you're doing to let out to do some cleansing of some sort, honestly. And it did feel better. When I posted the images, it really did feel like a relief. I was like, finally this is out and I just want the world to know this. And this is it. And that really helped me in terms of processing and making peace with what I wanted to make peace with.
For sure. And thinking of the title, I Live for the Applause, not that one specifically, and then obviously Hair and Melanin, and all of the other artwork which you would have, and photography, pardon me, that you have created would all be titled. Do you spend a while naming and thinking about descriptions? And was that sort of stuff taken from learning at art school, or is that something that's evolved as you've, I guess, progressed in your career?
Good question. I think with titling, it all makes sense differently. Like for all series, the titles come to me differently. Sometimes prior, I know like I want to do this concept. Sometimes this happens during post-processing. And like I'm seeing the final product and I'm like, what does this make me feel? What is the story here? And you try and write down a few stories and then maybe grab a few lines off of this story and get your title there. But yeah, that has come off of me experimenting all the time and growing. And in my journey, I've learned to really tap into what is it exactly that I want to say and how to pull my titles from this story. So it all depends, and it all comes in waves and different shapes and forms. Yeah.
And are you constantly thinking of what comes next? And I guess, like you said, you saw Lady Gaga and derived inspiration from there, and you've had inspiration from just being Kenyan and growing up in Mombasa and visiting Nairobi. All of those experiences definitely shape you. But are you always being inspired by various things, or do you look for it in certain areas?
I think for me, inspiration does come to me in in as I move through life differently. I I just get hit by life, maybe, or experiences or encounters with people that make me think about doing work in a certain way. Again, going back to making my work a diary, it's literally that. Like, if I'm in this headspace, I'm in this headspace and I'll create this. Unless I was doing some sort of documentary work or like very intentionally get out of my way to search for a certain story, which is being tied to a lot of times I've done that is when I'm doing documentary shoots or maybe you've been commissioned for something. But when it comes to my fine art projects, it's really mostly tied to my life experiences.
And you mentioned, obviously you're very drawn to fine art. Was that love of fine art fostered in art school, in fine art school in Nairobi. How, I know I'm jumping back a little bit now, but how was that experience, and how do you think that shaped you? What did you take away from there that made you think I want to pursue that as part of what I do?
I don't even know how I ended up doing fine art, a diploma in fine arts. Honestly, I can't even believe I've forgotten. Really growing old. But I knew I wanted to do something related to the media. Again, you remember I was when I was in high school, I never got quite exposed to this whole career path of photography and all that. And so I knew the only way maybe of doing art or getting a little bit into media is either you did journalism, doing a mass communication degree. If not that, something maybe closer, you can do a fine art degree, some sort of fashion design. And so somehow I landed at fine art diploma. And during that whole period is when I jumped into photography. And I guess maybe I was just bubbling with a lot of energy to pour out some sort of emotions or a lot of creativity. Oh, actually, I remembered in between my high school to me getting to university, in between there's really like a 3 months 4 months period. So within that time I started doing plays. I've been on stage as an actor. And I also did some sort of small graphic design sketching courses here and there. And maybe that I think I was just bubbling with a lot of creative energy. And my mother especially just nurtured that and let me go with it. And so with all this flowing and going with things that are still related to the creative realm, I found myself in photography, and that stuck, and I just went with the whole creativity. Then I finished that. I went to film school, and yeah, it's just been a journey, and I'm just glad that I've stuck to the creative side of this journey.
100%. I'm glad you did as well. And what a lot of people don't realize is you don't just take a photo. There's the time afterwards with editing and, like you said, processing. How did you go learn? Was that something you learned at that photography course and then it's evolved? Or do you find that you're constantly, I don't want to say improving, but just learning and evolving as a photographer in the way you take photographs, but then what you do with them afterwards?
Yeah, that has definitely been something I've been learning a lot in my journey. Even right now, I keep on working on the different styles and of editing styles. Because, in the short course that I did, it was mainly the technical aspect, and a lot of the tutors were commercial, teaching in a more of a commercial lens. And so with you, when you want to be different, you know the rules and know how to break the rules. And it's just been me exploring what rules I want to break and how I want to break them. And yeah, it's just been a journey. Like right now, I'm so obsessed with textures and the background of an image, and I love grains. I love textured portraits, and it's what I'm doing a lot now. And they all make sense, of course, depending on the different bodies of work. So yeah, I just go with the flow, break a few rules if I want, and just do what makes sense for me.
And so what is breaking a rule? Can you elaborate on that for anyone who doesn't know what you mean?
Breaking the rules. I think I would say this in terms of diverting, especially when you're a commercial photographer and you've been hired to shoot a beautiful picture for a model on Instagram. You will edit this work in a certain way. It's maybe soft, maybe lighting this way, and don't use a lot of texture in this way. And so for my work and what makes sense for me, I will do it according to what makes sense for me, and not necessarily what is the standard for like beauty portraits or what is the standard for fashion portraits and all that. So yeah, just being confident in the rules that you're breaking and in the elements that you're adding. A lot of people may be put off by grains. A lot of people may be put off by some sort of very low lit pictures, but if that's what I want, I will do that, and I will edit this image in that way.
No, totally. That makes sense. And you mentioned that you've been in galleries, so you obviously experience the digital market, so to speak, and the physical market. Yeah, talk to us a little bit about what you do. I don't want to say IRL because this is all IRL, but more the physical aspect and, you know, printing your photography and displaying it in person at galleries.
Yeah, you know, with the whole journey of being a fine art artist, there's a few paths you can take, and yeah, I finished my diploma in fine art, and when I got into film school, and now I'm here pursuing all this journey of fine art photography. And in Kenya, what people just hold space for is painting, sculpture, and all these traditional mediums. And so there is a space for fine art photographers, but in this country, you know, we're still trying a little bit. I think even internationally, you may not see so many fine art galleries, but I was lucky to meet a few gallerists here and there in the country who really loved and pushed my work. And so I got signed to a gallery called Aka Project, who have been wonderful in helping my career. And I've exhibited with them a lot in Dubai, in art fairs such as Photo Basel, Photo London, and yeah. So I've also done a solo show in London with another gallery called Dwelliwam, yeah, in Uganda currently. And I love experimenting and bringing my digital work to IRL, in real life spaces. When you print things, people experience them, and there's some sort of different messaging and power that comes to somebody seeing this image on this wall in this way. Of course, there's some sort of different, can I say, structures or different things that you, rules that you play with the whole career or with the whole world of fine art contemporary photography world. But I try and balance off that, can we say that that world with the digital, should we say digital, like with the whole blockchain side? Because yeah, I got into the blockchain world in 2021, and a lot of times, yes, there's physical exhibitions that happen on screens and all that, but it's also very different from how you do it with galleries. And I love both audiences, and it's just very different, and all of them are very powerful in their own sense. And as an artist, I think I'm always also advocating for artists to really, really cast their net wide and get to as many people as you can. And it's just a different feeling. Number one, a different what do you call them, choices in terms of the career, what do you call, standards that you have to hold when you're working with galleries, and when you're working with institutions to exhibit your work. And yeah, it's a bit of a longer shot. I think when you're working in that space, you really think long term a lot, and be patient a lot with how you are exhibiting your work. It's a bit different from how we do it digitally. I think when you do a lot of things on your phone or your computer, and how you're putting your work out to the audiences or the market, it's very interesting. And one thing that really made me love the blockchain space is this daily interactions with people who are collectors, friends, fans, and it's just amazing to have that sort of day-to-day interactions with people who love your work or want to collect, or just your friends or your critics maybe, compared to when you're working with the physical spaces or the physical galleries and all that. It's very much curated and more of a, you're structuring things. If you get lucky to have an exhibition here, good for you. If you get lucky to exhibit here maybe twice a year or once a month. And it's just very interesting, and I hope a lot of artists get to experience the both worlds of putting your work out to an audience digitally and physically, and see how that affects their growth, because I think it's a really what do you call, impactful experience when you get to touch both sides of this world.
I think that was a very strong message. And yeah, you almost answered my next question around advice for other creators. So I'm going to ask, you mentioned that it was interesting that, perhaps it's still tricky in a country like Kenya for fine art, or even fine art photography, even more specifically. where do you see digital art, or bringing art to the blockchain? I guess it might be hard to comment for a whole continent, like we said, it's so wide and varied. But in Kenya, what's the scene like?
Good question. I think number one, yes, I am. I'm trying to lead the digital scene here in Kenya with our community, Kenya NFT Club, and having stepped feet or having foot in both sides of the contemporary world and this new movement that we are doing right now. It's gonna take some time. It's gonna take some time, and I don't want to say that I'm giving up on the current generation, but I'm just seeing it's very long term. It's a long time planning out sort of thing. Right now, we are seeing a lot of digital artists rising and a lot of people coming out of their shells. And even as I was joining the NFT space in 2021, I already found a small Kenyan group, and the amazing thing was all of them are people I'd never seen in the contemporary scene in Kenya. Like the people who go to galleries, the people who exhibit in galleries are super different from the people who I interact with in the blockchain space. The artists who interact with, who are Kenyans still, but people who feel maybe they haven't had their own space created for them in the traditional world. So here's a space for us right now, and here's a space, which is maybe okay. Galleries have their own, what we call them, like their own filters on what they can call art and what is accepted on the walls of a museum and what is accepted on the walls of a gallery are very different from the number of things that artists do, especially with the digital tools. And blockchain and all these new movements that we are creating is enabling us to really expand the territory and really expand the number of things and the opportunities you can create for creators in Africa. So it's going to take time. It's going to take us to build our own spaces. It's going to take us a lot of us pushing and trying to create new spaces for new mediums, or people who are thinking differently to still nurture what it is that they have and what it is that they're trying to experiment and love. And yeah, it's gonna take a while, but I'm here for it. I'm here for it. I'll be trying to build this African scene as much as we can, and it's slowly coming together. It's slowly, a lot of people see the vision. Some people don't get it, but it's fine. And I love the new generation is very picking on things very easily, and maybe I'm putting my hope more into the new generation, and at least preparing for them to have some sort of fertile ground that they can come and really sprout and grow their talents in differently.
Well, I think that's a really beautiful metaphor to leave it with. They can sprout from fertile ground, and I'm glad that you're driving it. And it's a real pleasure to have you as a partner artist. So, Sherie, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. I love being a partner artist at Gamma. I think the community at Gamma is amazing, and all the support that you give us, and the platform itself is amazing. And I can't wait to see, so many wonderful things sprout out of Gamma and, yeah, the African scene.